All right.
Yeah, sickheadband.com called.
Hey, what happened to your sickheadband.com?
I don't know, actually. That's a really good question. I think I left it somewhere in my
Is
room.
that just a bandana?
Yes.
Okay, sounds
It's the
good.
same bandana I wore when I was Macho Man Randy Savage for Halloween that one year.
Like, I currently don't have like a face mask. Do you think I could like use a bandana instead temporarily? Would that still
Yeah.
like function?
I mean,
I think it's better
basically,
than nothing.
basically that's all those cloth face masks are. It's a way to prevent like bigger particles and stuff. So
Gotcha.
like sneezing and coughing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
because I've been using the one that Jen's coworkers gave her, which is just like cloth material attached to like the little elastic bands that wrap around your ears.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. So I did start this recording for you guys.
Oh Jesus! Did you pull the Joby?
Prior to this. Yeah, I mean, I figured in typical fashion, because I don't know if it notifies you guys if I started recording or not.
No,
Because I know in the participant
anyway.
section, it shows the little like record
Oh yeah, I
dot.
see it. It says
Oh,
recording.
now I see it.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Well, now that we started off in typical JobyCast fashion, welcome to the latest episode of JobyCast,
Quarantine
where COVID-19 edition, where we're trying a little something new. Unfortunately, because we are following the governor's orders, we are not allowed to meet up in person. So we decided we'd experiment and try to provide our listeners with an update on JobyCast now that this COVID-19 pandemic is officially taken off, unfortunately. So bear with us as we try to figure things out. And I know I'm rambling, so I'll just go ahead and introduce myself. This is Juan.
This is Matt.
And this is Jose.
So unfortunately, no Jordan, aka Joby, or other Matt, aka James, because of work-related incidents. And there's actually no incident. It's just they have to wake up early to go to work, and they hate us, and they don't care about the listeners like we do. So
Mostly they hate us, though.
And appreciate the sacrifices that we're making for you, because if not, then I'm going to talk more shit about the Sandlot, and we all know that nobody wants that.
Spoiler alert, does that mean this is JobyCast Mutiny Edition? Is this a mutiny?
Yes. So this
Excellent.
is the JobyCast. The minorities of JobyCast have decided to go on out on their own and forgo our white overlords and continue to excel despite them.
It's diversity day
Outcast.
at JobyCast.
It is. And maybe, who knows, it might be a continuing trend if our listeners like us more than Jordan. I mean, we're not going to be as funny as Jordan, but
that's true.
Who can be?
There'd be a lot less singing in this podcast than normal. I think that should be the expectation right now. So if you only came to listen to hear like Jordan sing random phrases, we might be disappointing you guys.
Or James's philosophical rants where none of us understand what he's actually saying, but we all smile and pretend like we do, because he will try to hurt us if we don't.
True.
This is going to be about as deep as a kiddie pool.
I mean, we can make it deep if you really wanted to.
No.
Oh, so well, because this is, I guess, been our first podcast since the order has been issued, we figured that in theme that we would provide listeners, I guess, an insight of what we've been doing to keep ourselves occupied, and hopefully provides some sort of ideas or new hobbies for listeners who might be struggling to find out what they want to do with their lives, now that they're stuck inside and aren't allowed to do anything. So with that being said, Jose, I feel like as someone who has been quarantined before the actual quarantine began, you've had enough experience to survive this. So what have you been up to?
Yeah, so I guess it's like pre-quarantine quarantine due to my unemployment status. But luckily, right before everything shut down, I was able to find a job. So like I said, I suckered them into hiring me at my current job. So luckily, I've been able to at least do some work during this quarantine, which has been kind of a good escape from just being at my house alone, doing nothing. I think like most people, it's just finding reasons to do things outside of your house. Like every single morning, I try to wake up relatively early as I would normally do for like work, but take my dogs on like super long walks. Like it's given me kind of that initiative and if I go early enough, I usually don't see anybody else on the trails or any of the places that I walk. So that's kind of been a good outlet to try to get out and like do a little bit of something. And I think just like everyone else in quarantine, it just led me down like a pipeline of watching tons of different shows that everybody's been talking about and trying to catch up on. So just to kind of recap some of them, I finally finished Game of Thrones after like 20
Took
years.
you long enough.
I was stuck on like season like 7, episode 4 for like the
You
longest
could have
time.
stopped.
I know, but like I just figured
It's
like
fine.
once I start something, I have to finish. So I figured like that was.
Can you just summarize how you felt about the season in a sentence, because
Which one, the
listeners are
final
dying
season?
to know. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, I like once I didn't live through the hype that was, so I guess it's easier for me to say like you guys were expecting every single season to come out. You guys were watching it episode by episode. Like there was a long delay before your excitement. And for me, like I knew where the end was and I knew that I was going to get there. The last season, especially the last episode, I want to say was very rushed just because it felt like they had to close everyone's story and they only had like an hour and a half to do so. And so it's like, hey, let me just tie up all these loose ends. Everybody ended up okay for the most part. I mean, and what sucks about like just the Game of Thrones lore is that a lot of the information that was revealed on that last episode I had already known about, whether it's through Twitter or whether it's through hearing you guys converse about the show. So that was kind of I guess it like let me down easy because my expectations were already pretty low for the most part. And to say like, well, at least those low expectations were met. Or maybe even just like slightly exceeded. So for me, it was still a success to go back and finish it. And so like now I can actually be a part of the group that says they finished the Game of Thrones.
So what you boiled it down to is that incest is the truest form of love, because if everyone saw how much Jon Snow wept after he killed his aunt or aunt
/ lover,
we all know we all know that's the truest form of love. Anyway, continue.
All about that booty on the boat.
Oh, God. Anyway, so you watch Game of Thrones, as we've discussed, and maybe we'll go in depth a little bit further later on in the podcast, as we've kind of been away from this a while and we've been a little rusty. So we'll discuss the sensation that took over the entire globe, which was Tiger King. But we'll get there. Yeah. Also, do you want to talk about the game that has been sweeping at least our group a little bit, which has been Animal Crossing?
Oh man, the amount of time that I have wasted since quarantine started, because I want to say it was like that Sunday that the quarantine was officially like enforced. I downloaded it like off like the digital store for Nintendo, and from that point to now, I think I've put in 105 hours. According to my thing. To be noted, like sometimes I leave my Switch on, so it's automatically accumulating hours in the background. But I've spent way too much time playing Animal Crossing.
For the listeners, I'm the one who convinced. Well, I didn't convince him, but I kind of give Jose that little push to get into Animal Crossing. I was like a week or two ahead of him at the time. Just for the listeners to know how much he's been playing it, he's gone above and beyond and surpassed me in the development of his island. It's
not only surpassed, but just like demolished. Like Juan came to my island like day 3, and he's like, "How do you have all these things? And also, why all your trees chopped down?" A lot of crazy things are happening, but yeah, no, I think like Animal Crossing has also been kind of one of those saving graces for a lot of people, just because it is just such a time suck. Like you just kind of get lost in just the simple act of whatever Animal Crossing is, which is very hard to explain to people because like there's no winning necessarily. It's just like you keep on living within that digital world. But
right. It's been to give listeners an insight of what that game is, maybe that piques their interest if they've never played it before. It's I think it's essentially you start off with a character who goes and lives in this deserted island with a few other people, and you try to develop your island into civilization by doing menial tasks like chopping down trees, collecting fruit, fishing, in order to accumulate wealth and develop the island. Now, those might seem like, why would anybody ever want to play such a thing? But it's more of a simple getaway, really.
And you get to realize the dream of paying off loans,
Yes.
not
Right.
being in debt, and having something to show for your hard work. So basically, it's Millennial Dream Simulator, and it's what we all strive for and will never have.
I mean, Matt, you already have a house, so I think you already are halfway there.
True. You're actually living Animal Crossing, Matt, while we're in a fictional world to try to understand what that's like.
I'm gonna go plant a bunch of fruit trees tomorrow and
Two apple
set
trees are
up
valuable.
a stand on my street.
That's the way to do
I
it.
mean, that means that you wouldn't be able to follow social distancing rules of 6 feet.
I'll throw apples at people who want them, and they can throw money back. It's foolproof.
Sounds good. I mean, all right, Pixie, is there anything else that you want to enlighten listeners of what's been going on?
No, like I said, I think it's just kind of the recap of what I've been doing. Like I said, we're kind of limited to what we've been able to do so far, like just trying to interact with other folks, like whether having like Zoom parties, like I think that's the kind of the new hip thing that everybody kind of logs into the same Zoom chat and tries to have either a happy hour or just like a normal conversation with folks. But I know like we had very similar things going on once. We had like the Animal Crossing and some of the other stuff. But Matt, what about yourself? Like you, having to work from home and then, trying to keep
It,
yourself busy, because I think you being kind of the sociable person in the group have kind of just been almost like rained down on, because you're not able to go out and interact with people and kind of spread your joy like you normally do.
yeah, I mean, and I'm the only one who doesn't own a Switch, and I also don't have Xbox Live, so I can't talk and game with anybody really. Um, so it's been pretty quiet. I've gotten very used to the walls in my house. I own a bicycle. Um, it has 2 flat tires right now. Something I might try to rectify. Um, but on top of all this joy of not being able to be around people, um, not being able to easily get quality beer, and having a bicycle with 2 flat tires, I also experienced the joy of turning 30. Um, I now have to pretend like I'm sad all the time and that I'm entering the worst years of my life. But I also read that like by the time you're 60, it swings up again, and then you're just like your second 20s. I don't know. But
Well, hold on, hold
I
on. You did mention your 30th birthday, so please, as we all went to your virtual birthday celebration, would you enlighten listeners of what occurred on that glorious night?
uh we got very intoxicated, which was great. It was a 1 drink minimum, which you can't enforce on the internet, but everyone seemed pretty okay with it. Jose was downing whiskey coke like it was his new job, which
I was hammered out of my mind.
and at some point during the night, we ended up getting Zoom bombed, which is
There it is.
this thing that
That's
apparently
all Horn
exists
wanted.
now. It's it's this social phenomenon where these wonderful Zoom meetings that everyone is able to have now only have a set number of things that their URL could be. And because we didn't know who was coming and how it was going to be, we didn't have this party set up in a way that you had to be let in. And so we had some random friends join us who were not our friends, not our friends at all.
All right. As I can tell that you're very uncomfortable going into detail about this, so I'll just take over from here. Okay, for an outsider looking in, because Matt tried to do his best to keep all of his friends entertained and invested in the conversation. these two random people showed up in the Zoom
I think there was three of
video,
them.
or three of them, or whatever the case may be. But at first, I just thought they were Matt's friends because, as you mentioned, there was all sorts of people. There were people that I've never met before in the chat. So I just assumed that they were more Matt's friends. And it started off with some random guy just like looking at his computer screen. I'm like, okay, they're clearly he's probably just waiting to get a word in. And all of a sudden, he starts touching himself. And it got to the point where he was actually like masturbating on the actual screen. And I'm looking around, I'm panicking, I'm looking at Matt, I'm like, is this like one of your friends? Like, what is going on here?
And that's how I
like,
introduce myself in news friend circles. It's just vulnerability.
Exactly.
It's the
I thought he was trying to make a
introduction.
great first impression. So what we're trying to say is, if you are wanting to get into the JobyCast's video chat, you need to publicly masturbate in order for us to accept you.
Gotta go the full Louis C.K. Full Louis C.K.
No potted plants. We have to full on just like see it.
It was definitely a weird experience for all of us involved. I think we've learned to not, we've learned to monitor our chats a little bit better. Now we have a host that allows people to go into the chat instead of just letting anybody random with a link to join the chat. So we've learned from our mistakes, and I think moving forward, we're better for it.
I mean, and we had a wonderful happy hour party night last Saturday, where at one point we tried to find the most famous person we knew to get in. And unfortunately, that ended up being Carlos.
Shout out Carlos, friend of the show.
But I mean, he was the most famous person we could find. But at least no one was scarred for life when he showed up.
Also true. That we know of, anyways.
That we know of. So, as the resident introvert one, how have you been enjoying quarantine life?
Honestly, I've been thriving. I know that people like Matt and Jen have been struggling. Those who've listened to this podcast for a while. Apparently, she refers to herself as the #1 super fan, but I have my doubts.
That's
honestly, I'm still working, so I do have that blessing where I do go to work for a couple hours during the day and then come home. But it's more like I still haven't been able to even scratch the surface on things that I want to do. There's so many more video games I could be playing, TV shows to watch. So I'm fine. Like, I've acclimated to this sort of lifestyle for a while now, just mostly because I have been broke and haven't really had much options. Ended up going to prom the other night, and it was a virtual prom, so that was cool. Like, I totally redeemed myself from my high school prom, and only took 10 years later.
Did they play Lips of an Angel?
Unfortunately did not play Lips of an Angel, and hardly any music was played. But
it was actually 12 years later, Juan. It's 2020 right now. You graduated in 08.
Anyway,
we're doing math.
Okay, but still, I tried to. Actually, for those who don't know, I ended up going to my first prom. I was so excited. I ended up buying her the corsage. I bought myself the boutonniere. Like, I just took care of everything. It was fantastic. I was 25 years old.
You were totally about to say croissant.
That's what I thought.
No. I mean, I would prefer to take a croissant over a croissant.
I think a date would appreciate a croissant more.
Unfortunately, no Creed, no Hinder. You're giving me ideas for next homecoming, which is going to occur next week.
Oh boy! Look, we just need a DJ.
Look,
other
guys,
than that, just
hear me out. So I'm thinking, if the listeners out there are interested, email us at JobyCast.com or at JobyCast@gmail.com. If you guys want to participate in a JobyCast prom, let us know. We'll be more than happy to set it up. We'll send you an invite. You can join our Zoom. We'll keep it locked to make sure that no intruders join, that only sophisticated young individuals will be able to participate. So shoot us an email if you're interested in participating, and we can make it happen.
Or sophisticated elderly people. I can't say that word.
We don't. We don't judge people, so
And
anyone can join.
and if you're lucky, we will go ahead and send your entries in, and we will draw from a hat, and that will get to determine who you get to take as a date of us as JobyCast members.
And we'll
Spoiler
send
alert,
you
I'm
guys
spiking the
croissants.
punch.
And we'll send you guys croissants instead. Maybe a Corona if we're feeling up for it, but you got to earn that first.
There will be vodka in the punch.
Yes, of course. But I think we've been skirting around the idea, and as someone who ended up watching the series again yesterday, because a certain someone hasn't watched it before, and I watched it with her, Tiger King.
Yes.
Yes.
So Jose and Matt, since you two were the originators of I think Matthew was the one who originated watching Tiger King because he had some sort of connection to Joe Exotic, besides getting the property of Joe Exotic tattoo on his navel. Would you like to kick us off?
Yeah. So I actually learned about Tiger King through some of my friends who I previously had worked with, and just minded my own business, not a care in the world. And I get a message on Facebook from one of my buddies, and it's a screenshot of this guy who was our boss when we had worked together. And they're like, you need to see this. It's one of the worst things you will ever see in your life. And this is the first person you see, and that it only goes downhill from here. So the very first person you see in Tiger King, this guy named Rick, he was my boss. He did a lot of cocaine. His appearance...
Allegedly.
No.
We don't want to get
not
sued by Rick.
allegedly.
He's famous now.
Not allegedly. He
Matthew,
has a
our
documentary.
JobyCast lawyers, LLC, have informed us that we should use the word allegedly in using cocaine use because we do not want to get sued, especially now that he has a lot more power.
We have no physical proof that shows otherwise.
Other than the whole documentary that he did about his cocaine use called TV Junkie. You can look it up.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But yeah, so I worked with him. Not my favorite boss. And yeah, so like he's the first person you see, and I already knew he was not a great human, and it went downhill from there. It's a documentary about people who shouldn't exist, tigers, and people who shouldn't exist with tigers at the same time. There's murder plots. There's the worst murder for hire scheme ever. There's a crazy lady who's supposed to be good but isn't, and probably killed her husband. And there's a fat dude on a jet ski. I mean, I don't know what else you could want in a train wreck, but it's just a glorious train wreck that is insanely memeable, because it shouldn't exist. I think that's the only way to describe Tiger King.
Okay, Jose. As someone who tends to be the pop culture expert in the group, what was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so I've first heard about it on Twitter because everybody was just kind of like ranting and raving about it, and then Matt mentioned, "Hey, I used to work with this guy who was in it, but like you have to watch it. I don't know if you'll understand what it's about or how you do it, but just like make time out of your day to do it." So I remember one of the nights I was just like sitting in my bed trying to find something to watch, and I didn't want to just watch Parks and Rec in The Office like I normally do. So I was like, you know what? I'll just watch one episode of Tiger King, see what the hype is about. And I kid you not, it was one of those like things that I just couldn't stop watching. I think I started watching it maybe around like 10:30, and I looked at my clock and it became like 2 a.m. and I was still balls deep in some Tiger King. Like it was just like so infectious and just so interesting over time that the world that they live in of having exotic animals, being who they were, how they were like running their like zoos and wildlife and whatever else was just insane to see. And I just kept on getting like sucked in more and more and more. Like, I think it almost became an addictive thing for me because I was able to finish the series within like first couple days, probably like 1 to 2 days, probably max is what I took. And then after that, I was doing like online research. I was trying to find interviews with the cast. I listened to like a podcast that was like directly affiliated with it. I listened to like numerous interviews by people who were also reporting on it. So I felt like I got to know the Tiger King so well over time, and I really almost took an appreciation to who he was as a person. Not that I appreciate what he did, but just like the knowledge that I was able to learn about how all these underground like tiger trades are happening was super duper interesting. And for me, like I said, there's just so many different situations where I watched the show and I was like, man, that was crazy. I don't think it'll get crazier than this. And then the next episode would happen. I'm like, how do they do it again? And then I'd watch another episode. It's like more crazy and more crazy and more crazy. So I just took it as like a roller coaster ride, and I really, really ended up enjoying it. And then trying to convince other people to watch it as well, because I wanted to talk about it and I wanted people to be as excited as I was.
Definitely the quarantine making a murderer. It's just that kind of documentary that's just, it's people who like that you feel like they're made for TV, and it because they're just insane, and insane people make for great TV.
Yeah, as someone who ended up watching it the first time just from afar a little bit because I was working as I was watching it, it was a weird combination of characters just because when you think, well, the premise is insane enough when you first start, but just when you think things can't get any weirder or crazier, it just keeps escalating to the point where it reaches the crescendo of, oh, by the way, I'm going to murder one of my rivals because I am jealous of her wealth and her fame or whatever the case may be, just because I'm a narcissist. But I think at the end of as someone who's watched it twice now, on the second rewatch, you come to realize there aren't any redeemable characters.
No.
Maybe for those who have actually watched is the guy who wanted to just get his political campaign career going. But even then, he's a stretch.
There's a news story about him and how he got arrested for chasing somebody with I think it's either a machete or a katana, something like that.
Okay, so there it is.
He looks like a guy who'd have a katana.
So the most redeeming characters are the person who lost their arm, the person who lost his legs, and the Cuban drug lord who ended up killing a federal agent in the process.
And supposedly the basis for Tony Montana.
Yeah, it's the basis for Scarface. So yeah, we try not to spoil too much, even though I think we did give major plot points away. So for those who haven't actually watched it, you're probably missing a bunch, and especially if you want to stay pop culture relevant. Maybe you should give it a watch, and listen to the podcast, and maybe immerse yourself and take your mind off of whatever anxieties and stresses COVID-19 is actually forcing on you.
Yeah, but as crazy as it is, like, I feel like Tiger King kind of overshadowed, like, you get done and you're like, all right, I need more crazy in my life. There's actually a ton of really good documentaries out on Hulu and Netflix right now that can give you that dose of craziness. I just finished watching one called McMillions. It's about the McDonald's Monopoly game being rigged from the late 80s all the way till 9/11.
Never forget.
That one is like, that one doesn't have as crazy of characters as Tiger King, but like the story of how it all worked is just, it's definitely not what you'd expect. Then another one I just started today. It's a 2-episode thing. It's also on. So HBO just dumped a bunch of stuff onto Hulu. So if you don't have HBO, wonderful time to have Hulu right now. But it's a documentary about this girl who was on trial a couple of years ago for convincing her boyfriend to commit suicide through messages. So there's plenty of crazy out there after the Tiger King has got you started on that train.
Matt,
Also,
you had mentioned. Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Yeah, so I was gonna say, like, you mentioned kind of like how what really drives these documentaries is like the people that were in them. Like, as you guys were watching Tiger King, was there a character that you guys like really, really enjoyed or just found to be super duper interesting? Like for me, I feel like every day it changes for me because then you start learning more about Doc Antle, you start learning more about Joe Exotic or maybe Carol Baskin. But I was just curious to see if you guys had a character that really like stood out, apart from obviously like Joe Exotic, who's kind of like the main person in the show. But was there anybody else within the show that you guys either maybe even related to or were just like really, really interested in learning more about?
I don't think you want to relate to any of them.
No. But like when I first started on the first watch in the very beginning, I sympathized more, and I'm I guess embarrassed to admit this, but I sympathized a lot with Carol Baskins at first. Before, as people might have listened at you in the background, because the way that I interpret it was, she comes across as a woman in this male-dominated field, right, where she might not be getting the respect, and maybe people are coming across as sexist, and they're all just attacking her from all sides, not just Joe Exotic, but Doc Antle, and everyone just shitting upon this woman. And it wasn't until you reached a particular episode where they just completely demolish her character, and you come to realize, she comes across as initially the most sane person out of all of them, but you kind of realize that she's probably actually the worst one of them all because she actually does commit murder. And
Allegedly.
Oh, come on. That one's, allegedly. Yes, but and as I watch it, I honestly sympathize for the workers more, even though they all probably have like their own issues because they're essentially eating spoiled meat from Walmart that came in a fucking like one of those garbage, those plastic garbage cans.
To clarify, it wasn't necessarily spoiled. It was either the due date was coming up, so they had to get rid of it, or if someone were like bring frozen foods to the checkout aisle and they don't buy it, they can't put it back on the shelf, so it gets tossed. So it could be then, fresh-ish,
fresh-ish. But yeah, but it's even like how often do they stay frozen while they're being transported from the Walmarts to the zoo? And it's also the living conditions of like those people. They were living in like really shitty trailers that like no hygiene was present. They found rats, there was cockroaches. It was and you come to realize that these poor workers are working 16-hour shifts 7 days a week because they're so entranced by the fact that they're able to play with tigers and have access to these animals that no ordinary person would. Even like towards the end of the episode, you see that one of the zookeepers is so in love with tigers that he doesn't have a life and ends up having like a stuffed tiger animal on his bed, and it goes to show how much they cared about these animals, which is great, but it's also the limited resources that these zoos have, and that maybe the argument that should be made that no exotic animal should actually be locked up for our purposes. But
free the animals, man. I don't know. I get that. I mean, it's just you do see like the workers at each of the I guess zoos, the private zoos or whatever they want to call them, as kind of the biggest victims in the entire thing. You're either in terrible working conditions at Joe Exotic's, you are in a cult at Doc Antle's, or allegedly.
Or, and he aligns the spoon with his penis.
Yeah, exactly. Or like with Carol Baskin, it's this hierarchy of volunteers that it's just like basically you're tying yourself for social status and being
Right. Which you come to
free
realize she's not even
labor.
paying them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
She's not even paying them. So like it's smart on her part, but it's also like, how do people allow themselves to be trapped in these
but
situations?
yeah, so there, I mean, I think those are the only ones who might be able to be considered a victim at all in this. But for the most part, it's basically uh, the whole documentary series is the personification of the phrase "there's no honor among thieves." Like the whole thing is every single person stabbing each other in the back at some point or another to gain like more control over things or up their status or whatever. I mean, especially fat guy on jet ski, like one, he's got the Chucky haircut, also known as the Mark Davis haircut. Um, and it's just like the whole time, it's just like, oh, he's an investor. Oh, now he's taken over. Oh, now he's out, and uh, now he wants to get back at the people who got him out. And then, yeah, the whole time it's like that. None of these people are good people. They're not, and it's just not.
Right. What about you, Pix? Was there anybody that you resonated with or sympathized with?
I mean, I think we could all kind of sympathize for Travis Maldonado because he did end up, I mean, due to his own stupidity, obviously, and probably because he was just like jacked up on meth, didn't realize what he was doing. But Matt mentioned the jet ski guy who, like, over the time, it keeps on changing who my favorite person is. But I think jet ski guy is like probably one of the most important people in the whole documentary because
He is.
without him, like he doesn't like Joe Exotic probably never gets set up to go like try to kill Carol Baskin. Like he put himself out there because of his own wrongdoings and was able to get like granted immunity or some sort of lesser sentence because he was able to set up Joe Exotic. Plus, like you mentioned, he had one of the sickest scenes in the whole documentary, which makes no sense, doesn't really like flow with
It
anything going
doesn't
on.
fit at
But
all.
just him with that big bulky body, just rocking some shades, hair blown in the wind. Like I feel like he could be right behind me right now in my like background beach, like background here on Zoom. But
Zoom
just
Island.
I think like the ridiculousness of, yeah, I got caught with like illegal lemur papers, but they're pretty easy to forge. And you're like, what world is this person living in? Like what society, what does their day-to-day look like? Like how do you get involved in this kind of like criminal organization, what seems like? But yeah, James Garrettson, I think was his name. Seemed like to me was like, I wish there was more James Garretson story just because I feel like there was so much that led to like the fall of Joe Exotic that was like solely based on this character. So for me, like he was always one that's most interesting to be able to say that he went like undercover and like set Joe Exotic up. But yeah, he was like one of my favorites. And I think he was like one of the more memeable characters that wasn't just like the main guy, just due to that jet ski scene. So I think that's what really like took it over the top for me.
Right, and there's also
The
like that one scene where they have the hitman or the guy that they tried to contact to kill, that Joe Exotic tried to contact to kill Carol Baskins, where they do a scene with him in the hot tub,
Shirtless.
like he's like shirtless, just baited in the hot tub. Like, why was that absolutely necessary? Like, why couldn't they get him in more normal conditions when he's doing this interview?
that
We don't know if
because
that's normal for him.
Because crazy. That's what it is. I mean, it's just like if you look at some of the other uh, documentaries that have gone big and people are like super into them, and it's like you can find like who the good guy is, and I think you can make the argument that there is no good guy in Tiger King. That there's not. Like,
The Tigers are the good guys.
The Tigers,
yeah.
for sure. I want to take a quick segue just because we were talking about documentaries, and I feel like a documentary that people should check out. And this is a documentary that we were obsessed with prior to JobyCast's actually forming, which was Abducted in Plain Sight. For those who haven't actually watched it, please give it a chance and watch it because
Please.
there's some outrageous characters in there. And don't worry, it's not scary by any means. It's just stupid.
You
And
you can't
go ahead,
you
Matt.
can't make a meme out of Abducted in Plain Sight, but
Yeah, you
I
can.
think it is 1,000 times crazier than Tiger King. Like the whole time you're just like yelling at your TV because these people are making choices that no sane person would make.
Right. You come to realize how the stupidity in people because of the situation they found themselves in.
Yeah, well, when I try to sell Tiger King to people, like I try to use Abducted in Plain Sight as like a reference just because it was kind of in that same mindset where every episode you're like, there's no way this can get like crazier. And the next episode happens and you're like, how did that happen? Like, how is that even possible? Like, how is that even part of the end of this story? Like, so for me, like, yeah, as Tiger King came out, like that was the first like documentary that came out that reminded me so much of it. I mean, obviously it's a totally different context and totally different subjects, but the insanity within both documentaries was just like next level. Like you rarely get to see anything like that.
I mean, yeah. So I think this COVID-19 provides an opportunity to, I guess, watch more documentaries, watch TV, or maybe even like develop a hobby. Which we're trying, but we'll see. Like, is there anything that you guys been wanting to get into now that you have this free time?
I'm actually shedding the Matt Watches Movies Late title and catching up on a ton of movies that I hadn't seen yet.
Hopefully with actually women as leads this time. That'd be great. Thank you.
The last 3 that I've watched was I watched 1917. I watched the new Star Wars. I watched Jojo Rabbit.
Ooh,
Jojo Rabbit's good.
Jojo Rabbit's really good.
Which was really good. So I mean,
we did a whole podcast on Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, like I had no idea what it was. I mean and I didn't like go into it knowing anything about it other than the recommendations from everybody, and that was fantastic. I watched the new Star Wars, which I hadn't watched yet. And then what did I watch? Oh, we watched Ford versus Ferrari the other night, which was really, really good. I recommend that. Weird to see Christian Bale being British, especially because he's actually British. But like, if you think about it, what are the roles you think of when you think of Christian Bale? Batman.
Cheney.
What is it?
The guy in the one murder
American
movie. American Psycho. Yeah, Patrick
American
Bateman.
Psycho. Patrick Bateman. Yeah.
Jason Bateman? No, I'm just kidding.
His cousin.
Different person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's just like you never really think of British Christian Bale. So Christian Bale being British works for him. I mean, maybe you should do it more often.
I don't know. This is where I try to do my Batman voice in an English accent to see if like Christian Bale being English in Batman. I think that would be a great visual. But
I don't know. I want to keep on going down that road. Per Joby's recommendation, I'm gonna probably watch Birds of Prey.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I was gonna watch Call of the Wild, but I heard it wasn't that great. But maybe
you can watch Onward. It was pretty good. The Pixar movie. Yeah. I think it's on Disney Plus now.
So I am using this time to no longer watch movies late.
You, Pixie, is there anything that you want to get into?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily get into, because I think as part of like our quarantine, we're not allowed to go to restaurants. And I realized that I go out to eat way too much prior to all of this. Like, it's always easy to just like stop by like a fast food joint, grab some food, come home, grab some Wingstop. If you guys want to sponsor us, let me know. That used to be kind of like my go-to stuff. So what I've been trying to do is like be better at grocery shopping. And so like there's like go-to recipes that I know how to make. So like ceviche, I know how to make like this fried chicken that my mom used to make growing up. Obviously like burgers or anything like that, that's pretty easy. So what I've been like realizing is that, I'm not going to the grocery store as frequently as I used to, or like on a need by need basis. So like I've been trying to stock up with as much stuff and then just make as much as I can with those groceries, and like last as long as possible before having to go back. And so I run into this issue where I only have like few supplies left. And so I'm trying to like craft different things with like what I had left. So I made like spaghetti with like turkey patties that I had left over once. So for me, it's like finding new cooking combinations of stuff based on the ingredients that I have, which has been like good and bad. Like I tried to make some sesame fried chicken the other day, and it was god awful. Just like the combination of both things did not work with each other. And so for me, it's using this quarantine as like almost a creative mindset to like find recipes, find other things to try to create food. So I don't necessarily have to go and spend money on groceries or go and spend money in trying to like DoorDash or Uber Eats something. Cause even those kind of scenarios, like as much as you want to support local, restaurants, or just like try to get food really quickly and not have to cook it yourself, it's still really, really expensive. Like even if they knock down delivery fees, like you still have to pay like a service fee, and then they make you feel bad if you don't tip the driver. So it actually comes out equaling almost about the same, I want to say, to what it normally would be. So
yeah, like you're tipping a waitress at a restaurant.
Or your
so
meal
like,
is like a meal with drinks instead of just a meal. Like,
yeah, well, like, and then like there's like minimums to the amount of stuff. Like you have to spend like $15, and I live by myself, so like being one person and ordering like $15 worth of Qdoba to have it delivered seems almost pointless. So, plus I don't want to be that guy.
Here's the thing. As soon as like the delivery guy comes and knocks on your door, like you yell out, "Food's here," even though you're by yourself. So then people don't know that you're just about to demolish $30 worth of Taco Bell.
Yeah, but like I
Extra
don't want to demolish 30. Like I only want like what I would
Oh, that
normally
attitude.
individually eat.
one.
So yeah, so like I said, it's for me, it's just trying to get creative with what things I have left. Like you can pretty much make anything if you have like, tomato sauce and like any kind of noodle pasta. So it's like being as useful as possible and trying to like save as much money, because I think in this quarantine is a good time to kind of save up as much as you can and not like spend as much as you normally would. And plus like not going to the stores or going shopping, like everything's online, but everything's delayed. So I'm almost even more resistant in like ordering stuff, because I'm like, I don't want to wait an extra week, which is like super like privileged and entitled. But I think it's been helping me kind of realize like what's important and what's not important. Like I said, mostly all the stuff that's important is just my dog related. So if he needs like food or treats or toys or whatever, I'll prioritize that over just like my essential needs. But yeah, like I
Oh,
said, I
look at
think
you being a great father.
yeah, well, I mean, this
Dad
piece
of
of
the
shit
year
just
right
like lays
there.
around all day. Um,
Oh,
I'm at
Ozzy.
work and then cries at me when I don't give him any attention. But yeah, I think that's kind of like been the main thing. And like I said, just trying to keep busy. Like I think where I differ compared to you guys is like I'm also like living by myself. Granted, I have my dog, but he doesn't like communicate in like normal communication as human to human. So also like staying up to date, whether it's speaking with coworkers, chatting with you guys, generating podcast content, like just finding other reasons to stay active and stay doing stuff instead of just sitting at home all day, not doing anything, just like hanging out at my computer, like wasting time.
Right. I think I've gone on the complete opposite of you, where it's been more like Jen and I've been like trying to support local businesses and eating out more, which is also a double-edged sword, because yes, this is the chance where I want to take the time to use the food that I have in the fridge and cook, but it's also like, how do I start, right? It's more like I've been so used to eating now, and we did that so much that now where it's like you have to cook for yourself, it's like, oh, well, I'm trying to learn how to cook and not completely fuck this up and give any of us food poisoning. But that's something that I want to do. If anything, that's definitely put a bright spot on things that I need to work on, and maybe even like learn to take like a cooking class going forward. But besides that, I think being quarantined also provides or its own difficulties, right, Matt? Maybe like as someone who's also in a relationship where it doesn't necessarily strain your relationship, but it's also adds a different type of pressure where you're in this together kind of thing where you're not trying to kill each other or learn ways to live with each other, because Jen and I choose to be around each other all the time because we do have the luxury of having a place to ourselves, but it's also keeping each other company so we don't go insane and be supportive of each other, because this provides new difficulties because, like you, she is a social butterfly and I'm not. So it's trying to like make sure she survives this and not having to worry about her going insane. But it's also trying to figure out how to handle this new situation.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like that part actually hasn't changed that much. Like I have to work from home. I'm at home all the time during this whole thing, but since my wife is an essential worker, she's at work all the time. So it's like really, it's the same as if both of us were at work all the time. But like I just get the hard time of not leaving the house, because I've talked to a couple of people who they're working from home, but they don't have to really do anything. And it's more like this is kind of a vacation for them. So it's like, I know people who are like, oh, I've got all this time now to catch up on this, 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 and this. It's like, well, I don't. So what I've had the hardest time with is I don't leave my house unless I'm going to the grocery store. That's half the reason my bicycle has 2 flat tires. I haven't had the time to leave or do anything. So there was it's not worth putting the effort into fixing that, because like I'll fix it, but then I won't have any time to do anything and they'll just go flat again.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you can always get a new bike now. Maybe it's your new hobby. You become a cyclist. Wear those sexy outfits that the old people wear, where that has like the USPS logo on, and like those pants that had the padding around the crotch area.
Are you stuck in 2003? Are you telling me to go full Lance Armstrong here?
Yes, it's a simpler time, and we're 17 years away from COVID-19, and you have time to prepare yourself for this. Become an introvert.
Are we all getting Livestrong bracelets? Is that what? Are we all getting Livestrong bracelets next?
Exactly. We're just going to.
I mean, I know the world is ready for me to be wearing spandex biking shorts, but
exactly. But yeah, so I think what we tried to do, and forgive us for this being a little clunky, it's us trying to figure out our relationship, not necessarily a relationship because we have a relationship outside of JobyCast. It's more of trying to find the dynamic when we aren't in front of each other and with people that are missing. So we just tried to at least get a little bit of a jump start into the life of JobyCast to get us going again. And we'll figure this out. We won't be as dark and as sad as we normally are in this particular podcast, but
look, I know we're missing a couple of things. 1, we're all sober. 2, there's no title belts. 3, we're not making weird looks at each other because there's a camera on, and it's harder to like make inside jokes or set inside jokes up from distance. But I can get better at 2 of those 3 things. I don't know how I'm going to get a title belt again, but I can promise the next time there will be more inside jokes and there will be more hard seltzers.
It's just we shouldn't be drinking on a work night.
Also true, Matt.
I mean,
no, and the hope is that like once, hopefully, like I said, the rest of our JobyCast compadres get a little bit more energized and maybe have a little more time and so we can get us all together in doing one of these chats, and we'll have more topics to talk about, I'm sure. Joby and James have been doing a bunch of stuff during this quarantine that would probably interest us and our
Besides
podcast
each
listeners.
other.
Besides each other. Maybe a couple of special guest appearances by our boy Dirty Mike. I think that's been essential for recent JobyCast. So like I said, I'm excited to start recording more.
It's not just they just added Dirty Mike into the mix. I mean, that's what they added.
Right. And for those who haven't had the chance to check it out just yet, Pixie did his own separate little podcast with a little bit like a fan appreciation podcast with some loyal listeners. So if you want to check that out and see how you like it, maybe if there's some voices that you've listened to the first time and you want to hear more from them, we would like to hear some feedback. And maybe we can include them. So yeah, just let us know. You can email us at JobyCast's@gmail.com. You can find us at JobyCast.com, Instagram at JobyCast, Facebook at JobyCast, or Jordan's personal page because that's where it's associated with. But I guess what we would like to know is if you're interested in the homecoming idea, please let us know. If you want to send us hopefully not videos of you doing naughty things to yourself, we would not appreciate that. But if that's something that you want to do to express yourself, we understand.
Save that for the subreddit.
Okay, fair enough.
Or just
so any last words?
Or not at all.
So any last words?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things where we're just in a situation where everything's changing, and adaptability is key. Like, we got to figure out how to change everything around to do what we would normally do, but confined in a box. And that's how I feel.
For me, like I said, I just hope people keep listening. Like, I know that we've been kind of lagging on content just in general. So, like I said, give us feedback, listen to the podcast, let us know what we could do better. Let us know how the quality of these new style podcasts are. We know that it's a little bit different with the Zoom call, so we're not directly there with like the professional equipment that we normally have. That's like
not that we were
even that
professional.
I know we started like gang wars with other podcasts recently. So if we could just, be better than them and spew out better content, obviously that'd be ideal. But yeah, like I said, it's been fun. Like I said, it's fun to reconnect with you guys and kind of catch up to see what you guys are doing. And like I said, just hearing your guys' voice just brightens our day. So hopefully it does that for other podcast listeners.
Right.
The last thing we want to do is give peace a chance.
Okay. My last words. Lucky Gary Dietz. I haven't said it in a while. I just wanted to reiterate that. Sandlot still sucks. I know that's an old trope, but it is what it is. Carol Baskins killed her husband, allegedly.
Heel.
Magic Johnson still has AIDS. Or HIV, sorry.
Are you positive?
HIV positive. Anything controversial that I can say? I don't know. Like, what I'm trying to do is provide some sort of outlet for people to hopefully get distracted for a bit by listening to us. And if you are listening to us to distract yourself, I think we have more questions to ask about you because we wonder if you're actually sane.
You're not.
But other than that, if you are feeling like Jose, if you're stuck in a situation where you are by yourself and really don't have an outlet like a thick pug, reach out to us. We will do our best to help out and let you know that you're not alone, that you have us as we, I guess, despite everything in the contrary, we do enjoy our fans. So please let us know how you feel about this change in recording. We will do our best to provide you with content and maybe actually come up with an idea instead of scrambling 5 minutes before we start recording for a topic.
So again, best monologue ever.
Exactly.
The best monologue ever.
No monologue this time. There's no James here to force
No,
it
that's what it
upon us.
was. I thought that's what it was.
That
I
was
thought
the
that was a
monologue.
monologue. It was the
There was a monologue all along.
You didn't know no one timed it for 3 minutes, so maybe next time there'll be a
18-minute monologue.
Maybe the monologue is the
Jesus.
friends we made along the way.
Oh, God. I hate you all. All right. So, with that being said, I guess this is where we say goodbye for now. And we will see you again soon. And that's not where we're just saying we'll see you again soon and record another podcast weeks from now. We have some things coming up, and hopefully you come to enjoy them. And we'll go from there.
See you now, or we'll see you on another time.